Are we on now? There we go. So my grandmother used to say, I've got a tractor trailer load of stuff to tell you in a Pinto amount of time. And if you know how small a Pinto is and how big a tractor trailer is, you know how much stuff I've got to tell you this morning. So how many of you have been to a movie lately? So you know when you go to the movies, they have commercials at the beginning of the movie, all this kind of stuff. I'm going to start with commercials this morning, okay? Here's your commercial center up here on the front pew. So for things you need to come up, I know most of you never get past that point to this part of the auditorium. So we got a reason to get you up here to use the carpet up here. Okay? Number one, all good speakers come with ink pens. So there's ink pens up here. I know that it is May, but it's never too late to get another calendar. And so this will be a great calendar for you for the rest of the year. It has about a lot of our programs at children's homes, a lot of our kids in care, things like that. How many of you right now at home have a bag of potato chips being held closed by a clothespin? Raise your hand. You know you're out there. Okay? Well, we have chip clips. So you can repurpose those clothespins for what they were intended to be used for. I'm not sure what that is anymore since we don't hang clothes out on the line. But anyway, that's up here. And then also, see, you need one of these. She's fanning up here. I have fans. For two reasons. Number one, I just got really tired of going to churches and seeing the funeral homes waving at me all the time. But also, this is a gift for you to send Devin a message. When he starts stepping on toes and getting you a little hot under the collar, you just pick up your fans and start waving. And that's a signal for him to back off. Okay? But all this stuff's up here. You can come get whatever you want up here and take it with you. Now, let's see if we can do this, if I can get this to work. And I'm not advancing. He's going to get me where I got to be. Let me say while he's doing that, this congregation has been so loving and kind to God's children. Not just the children we care for at children's homes. I know that you are also actively involved in Searcy Children's Homes. And I think whether we are helping children through us or we are helping children through them or through Southern Christian Homes in Morrilton or any other place that we can care for God's children, we are doing a mighty awesome thing. Because we are giving children the opportunity to see God and to grow up in a loving home where they are cared for and they are protected and their needs are met. And that's just a wonderful thing to do. And so we begin this morning by thanking you for doing that. Whatever that is that you do to make sure that children have the opportunity to live in safety and in comfort and in love and have the opportunity to see God. I always begin with this passage right here from the book of Psalms that says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord." Just to remind us that our children are gifts to us from God the Father. And with every gift that God gives to us, God expects us to be a good steward of that gift. Now, I know most of the time in our worship services when we talk about stewardship, what does it always relate to? Pretty much always relates to money, doesn't it? But I think we need to look beyond that and understand that God gives us so many more things than just money. He blesses us with everything that we need daily to live. And God calls us to be good stewards of those things. What does godly stewardship look like? I think godly stewardship is doing with what God gives you as God would do. And so if we can come to the agreement this morning that God is the one who blesses us and gives us our children, then I think we also have to come to the conclusion that God expects us to care for and rear our children the way God would do it. Now when you think about that, that's pretty big, isn't it? It's pretty big to think about at the end of the day when you pillow your head and you ask yourself the question, did I care for my children today the way God would have done it? Did I love them the way God would have loved them? Did I care for them? Did I discipline them? All the things that God does to us as the example of the perfect Father, we must then model for our children. But always remember that our children are a heritage from the Lord. I tell churches all the time, God never expected a child to be a mistake. Children were never intended to be burdens. Children were only intended by God to be blessings. And what our responsibility is in caring for these kids is making sure that they continue to be God's blessings on this earth. And that's what we try to do at children's homes. To bring children who come to us from a lot of different places, a lot of problems in their lives. Sometimes things that are done to them, sometimes things they do to themselves through choices that they make in life. But they come to us broken in one way or another. And our responsibility is to turn these kids back into the blessings God intended them to be from birth. And we're thankful that we are there to be able to do that. Some quick facts about children's homes, just to give you a refresher course. We were started in 1955 by the Seventh and Moeller Church of Christ in Paragould, a congregation that was just trying to practice pure religion, as we're called to do in James 1:27. A congregation that had in their care 4 children, 4 siblings that needed a home. And they worked the best they could by placing those kids within families of that congregation. But they quickly saw that wasn't going to work too well because, as you know, a lot of times we're transient people and there are things that happen. There's illnesses and there's job changes and there's death. And so even in that congregation, they saw problems. They couldn't find somebody that could keep all 4 kids at one time, so they were being split up in their families, being moved from this family to that family. And so finally the leadership of that church stepped back and said, we need to do this differently. We need to build a house where the kids get to live, where they get to stay permanently. Now the adults may still come and go, but at least they have their place to call home. And they started the process of building that first house. What a lot of people don't know is that in the process of doing that, though, a family member stepped forward to take these 4 kids to live to be in a family. Children's homes in the Seventh and Moeller Church of Christ came to a crossroads at that time. Because then they asked the question, we've done what we needed to do in this situation. Do we continue down the path we are going, or do we redirect ourselves and go a different way? And in the process of making those choices and those decisions, they started getting phone calls and letters from other churches around Northeast Arkansas and Southeast Missouri who were saying to them, please keep moving forward because we're doing the same thing you're doing. We're practicing pure religion within the families of our congregation of caring for kids and running into the same obstacles and hurdles that you have. If you will continue down this path, then we will come alongside you. I tell you that for you to understand that from the very beginning of children's homes in 1955, we have never been a business. We have always been a ministry of the Lord's church, of many churches coming together to provide a place for kids to come and live and grow. And so because of that, it's very important for us that the leadership of children's homes maintains being the eldership of the Seventh and Moeller Church of Christ. We are honored to be under the eldership of a church because it helps us stay focused on what our primary goal is for these kids, and that's their spiritual direction in life. I meet with this board on a monthly basis, and I can tell you at every meeting there will be some form of a conversation that goes on about the spiritual direction of these kids and what we are trying to do on a daily basis to place them in the presence of God. Because our ultimate goal for these kids is to begin their walk with God. And we must, with everything that we do, form a ministry at children's homes that the ribbon of God runs through everything that we do. Which is also why that every employee, every foster family, every support family, everybody we have at children's homes who works with our kids are all members of the Churches of Christ. Because we want to make sure that we run a consistent view of God through every part of who we are. We have kids that come into our residential program in Paragould and transition from there into foster care and transition there into adoptive homes sometimes. We want them wherever they go at children's homes to get that consistent view of God. They have come from things all over the place. We don't want them to be confused about God. And everywhere they go, they see God as laid out for us in the Scriptures, and that's a very important thing. But that's also the very reason that since we began in 1955, Children's Homes has never taken a penny of government money and never will. Because the one thing that we will not compromise is we will not compromise the opportunity and privilege we have to teach these kids about God. We live in a world that's changing. And I can cite you story after story and case after case right now of programs similar to children's homes across this country where the state governments are stepping in and telling them, you cannot give them a Bible anymore, you can't pray with them anymore, you can't take them to church anymore if they don't want to go to church, and if you continue to do these things, here are the consequences. New Pathways Children's Homes in Kentucky faced this a few years ago. And when they stood their ground and said, no, we will continue doing this, the state of Kentucky did two things to them. They took away $1 million a year they were giving to them to help care for kids, and they took away all their kids. And to this day, the state of Kentucky refuses to place children who are in crisis in that home because they teach about God. We're not going to do it. We are also not going to do it because we work every day to teach these kids that God is a God not to be compromised. We live in a world where, I'm just being honest with you this morning, we do that too well. We allowed a lot of things to come into our lives that redirect our attention away from God, and we move God down on the list of importance to replace Him with things that sometimes are just fun to do. Or because our kids have a certain talent in this or that. And what we don't realize so many times is that as we move God down on the list of the important things in life, we are teaching our kids that it's okay to do that. And it's just not. God must remain at the top of our list of importance in everything that we do. We can still have fun in life. We can still enjoy talents and skills, but God can still be number one. And we must work to do that. We have a lot of things that happen at children's homes, but I love this statistic right here. That since December of last year, these 5 children have been baptized into Jesus Christ because of the efforts at children's homes and our house parents and families we have there. Kids who have started their walk with God because of what we do every day to teach them about God. And that's where our churches come in such a beneficial thing for us. The first young lady up there, Jessica has returned home to her family in Salem, Arkansas. It was a great opportunity for us then to engage that congregation because Jessica was coming home, and the last thing we wanted to happen was for Jessica to fall through the cracks. Jessica was going home to a place where Mom was not a Christian. Mom didn't think church was important. And we didn't want Jessica to get lost in all that. We contacted Mike Yates, who's the minister of that congregation and the leadership of that church, and said, Jessica's coming home. We need you to be our hands and feet there in Salem for Jessica. And man, have they done a job. Every worship services, there's somebody on Jessica's doorstep making sure she's at church. And now they're reaching out to that family, and Jessica's sister is now coming to church and worshiping with her. Her mother is now talking to the leadership of that church and studying with them. A woman who at one time said, y'all don't even want me at your church. I'm covered with tattoos. I've had a rough life. And Mike Yates looked at her and said, I don't care about your past. I care about your future. To begin studying the Word of God with her. And that congregation wrapped their arms around Jessica and her family. And so when these kids go back home, a lot of times you think of your importance is of just sending food and filling up change cans, but sometimes these kids do come back home into your communities. And then you become an even greater arm of us working with these kids. The young man you see at the bottom, kind of in the middle, his name is Sean, just his face is there. Sean was a kid that came to us from some pretty difficult circumstances. When Sean came to us about 2 years ago, the caseworkers that brought him into us basically told us, if you cannot help Sean, Sean is not going to live. Notice I didn't say not have a life. She said Sean is not going to live. Sean, at the age of 14 years old, came from a very difficult situation, a family divorce, of dad getting a girlfriend, of dad not being home. Sean was looking for comfort somewhere, so he turned to 2 things. He turned to drugs, he turned to food. And when Sean was placed in our care about 2 years ago at the age of 14 years old, Sean weighed over 400 pounds. Bodily functions were starting to shut down on him. His heart was in distress. He could barely walk. So we began figuring out, how do we develop a plan for Sean? We got involved with CrossFit there in Paragould, which is right down the road from us. And they took Sean under their arms. And I'm proud to announce to you today that since Sean came to us 2 years ago, Sean has now lost 175 pounds. Sean got a bicycle for Christmas, and Sean can now ride his bike around campus. He can go to the gym and go play with the boys in the gymnasium, play basketball and things like that, when before there was no way he could do it. I tell you that because I want you to understand, for Sean, we gave him life twice. We gave him physical life to be able to live, but we also were able to give him God and give him that life. A life of Christianity. A life that leads for eternity for him. And of everything that we do at children's homes, this trumps it all. Because we're giving these kids hopefully something that will stay with them for eternity. We are not naive enough to think that when they leave us, everything's going to continue perfect, because sometimes these kids do go back home. And they're young and they're impressionable and things change in their lives. But we hope that we are setting them a foundation that one day they will come back to if they leave it, because they've been taught about God while they were with us. We have a lot of programs at children's homes. What a lot of people know about in other places, you're a little different because you're so close to our foster care programs. But what a lot of people know so much about is our residential program in Paragould, our main campus there. We have 10 family homes in Paragould caring for kids who come to us from a lot of different reasons. And we have to work through a lot of different things with them to get them back to be productive in life. Our house parents that we have there do an amazing job of bringing these kids into their families and mixing them into their biological children and making them feel as family to care for them. And we're thankful for what they do. Things that we have to deal with. You see the Balcom Learning Center listed up there. We have a lot of kids who come to us in that program from behind in school. Months and years behind in school. And we have to work to get them on the right academic level so they can then go into our local school systems and continue to do well. Let me say this real quick. How many of you are teachers in the room? School teachers, raise your hand. Retired school teachers? So let me say this real quick. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute and say, God bless you. You don't hear that enough for what you do. But to everybody else in this congregation, let me say this to you. Stop blaming our schools. The problem with our world today is not the fault of our schools. These men and women who are teaching our kids in our schools, they went to college to learn to teach them, but they are spending a lot of their days being moms and dads to them because nobody else is. If you want something to change, put the blame where it needs to be, and that blame is on the broken home. You get our homes where they should be. You get mothers and fathers loving each other and loving their children and caring for each other as a family. Our schools will change and they will get better. But these kids are coming to school, and school ends up being their safe place. School becomes the place where their needs are being met. And so sometimes there just may not be enough time to teach them during the day because they're having to do all this other stuff that the home's not doing. And if you've not been in the school systems, you don't understand that when kids come to school out of hunger, they can't do well in school, and they have problems in school because they're just focusing on their little bellies being empty. Kids who come to school from abuse, of being abused that morning or watching mom and dad abuse each other, they come to school, it's their safe place, and they worry all day long about having to leave school that afternoon and go back home because they don't know what they're going to go back home to. So many things in this life, they start with the home, and we need to stop blaming everybody else and put the focus on where it needs to be, and that's on the home, and doing what we can to repair it. So it's the home designed by God, and how we are supposed to love and care for our kids. And then our teachers in our schools can get back to doing what they're supposed to do, teaching our kids. Because it's all this other stuff and not having to worry about all that stuff. When these kids come to us, we have to fill in a lot of gaps and teaching them a lot of things outside of book knowledge. We have to teach them how to trust, how to love, how to nurture, because so many of those things have been non-existent in their lives. Or if they have been there, they've always been painful. Because the people who were supposed to love them and be able to trust and nurture them are the ones that put them in harm's way. So programs like our Wilderness Therapy Program or 4-H or Equine Therapy, those programs are designed to help these kids learn those skills in life, because those skills go hand in hand with school. And when you get those things working together, then all of a sudden you see kids who come into you making D's and F's in school and not caring about it, to very quickly making A's and B's in school and doing well, because we're meeting those needs. We're dealing with a real pain and not the symptoms of pain. And all of a sudden it changes their outlook on life to make life better for them. One of the programs we have that's so very important to us is called Working Together. It's a program we have one Saturday a month. Reality, most of these kids who come into our residential program are going to go back home. They're privately placed with us for a period of time. And a lot of them will go back home. And so you understand why we have to have this program, because if we don't do anything to change the home, when they leave us, guess what happens? They go right back into what they came from, and they begin to spiral out of control again. Sometimes we have to educate parents how to be better parents. Working Together is designed to do that. One Saturday a month, all the parents that are willing to come into our campus in Paragould, and they sit there from the morning and they work with our counselors and our therapists and our caseworkers on how to be better parents, how to understand their children, how to communicate with their children, how to resolve conflict. And then in the afternoons, the kids come in there, and thus the name, they literally work together on how to be a family again. And I'm very proud to say that for those families that will come and go through this program, when their children leave and go back home, we have a better than 98% success rate that those kids never have to leave their home again. Because home has changed. But more than that, the parents now have a resource that they didn't know they had before. That when there are difficulties in the home, parents can call us and ask questions and get help and get advice. And just because a child leaves our care in Paragould doesn't mean they leave our family. And we do whatever we need to do to be able to help that family continue to thrive and grow together as God's family in that home. We have to deal with a lot of addictions and grief therapy at children's homes. These kids have seen a lot in their life. They've been products of divorce. They've been products of abuse. They've searched out things like alcoholism and addiction to drugs and things like that, because they're trying to find something to make life better for themselves. And we have to deal with a lot of those things at children's homes in Paragould to help these kids get past those things in life, to see life differently and to be able to move forward in life. We also have our foster care programs in the state of Arkansas and the state of Missouri, which some of you have been involved with for a long time, and we appreciate that so much, since our foster care offices in Arkansas are just right down the highway here in Searcy. And I know many of you have helped through the years, either being foster parents, adopting kids, being support families for us, and we just thank you so much for what you do. We're duplicating this program in the state of Missouri at this point in time and trying to grow families up there to do foster care in the southeast corner of that state, up to around Cape Girardeau, over to Rolla, Missouri, and down to the Arkansas-Missouri state line, because there's a great need in that part of that state as well for Christian families who are willing to step in and do foster care. We will talk more about foster care in just a few moments. We also do adoptive services for families of the Churches of Christ in the state of Arkansas. We were actually the first private agency in Arkansas many years ago to get a license for foster care and adoptive services in this state. And so we've been doing it a long, long time. Where we benefit families of wanting to go through adoptions is there's a lot of people out there that will charge you a lot of money to do that. We don't do that. We help you go through all the pre-stuff, the post stuff, and all the things in between with paperwork, and really the only cost to a family is just to deal with any kind of legal fees they may incur going through that process. And so we try to help match a lot of things up. We do adoptions at children's homes. Now, I will tell you, a lot of the adoptions that we do are not kids who are placed into our care permanently that we then adopt out. Most of those adoptions come through our foster care program, and we'll talk about that in just a few more minutes. Just to give you some idea of what we do when kids leave us, one of the big questions people have is, when a child turns 18, what happens to them? You've heard this phrase in child welfare, aging out of the system, and they've made it such a negative thing. You know what? I hate that. Because in reality, everybody in this room, you have aged out of something. You aged out of elementary school into high school. You aged out of high school into college. You aged out of your parents' home. We've all aged out of something, and they've made it such a negative thing. When really we all go through these stages in life. And what makes it good or bad is the support system you have to help you go through that transition in life. When kids leave us, when they leave home at 18, and they're going to go to college, they're going to go into a vocation, whatever, we have programs now designed to help these kids make that transition. Because we think it's important. We think education is extremely important at children's homes. We think every child needs a high school diploma. But then after that, it all depends on that child. I am a product of college education. But I will tell you, when I came to work at children's homes, one thing I learned: not everybody needs to go to college. And you know what? That's okay. Because our communities are filled with people who didn't have a college degree, but they're providing very, very valuable services in our communities. And they're making money to care for their families, and they're loving their families, and they're in our worship services in our communities doing things. Just because they don't have a paper on the wall doesn't mean they aren't successful. Some kids are not designed for college. Those who are, we help them do that, because if they want that choice in life, we think that's important for them, and we work to help them do that. We've got scholarship money now available. We're working to endow a scholarship at children's homes for kids that when they go through their freshman year of college, there's scholarship money available for them. And every year they continue going on, that money grows every year. Up until I think their senior year, we actually give them a $5,000 scholarship their senior year of college. For kids that want to go into a vocation, go into technical training, things like that, we have money for that as well to help them with those expenses. We don't want our kids to be strapped once they get out of college with a lot of expense. Some of you may know Randy Pixler. Randy is a student at Harding University. Randy will graduate, I believe, in December. Randy will graduate from Harding University with zero debt. And those of you who are associated with Harding, you know it's not inexpensive to go to Harding. You get a very good education there. But we're proud of the fact that Randy's going to be able to leave college and be able to go out there and work and live life and not be strapped with a lot of debt. This is not just for kids who are in our care right now. We've had kids who have left our program a few years ago and went back to be with their families and are being successful. Those kids can still come back to us and apply for scholarship money. Like I told you, once they leave our care does not mean they leave our family. And we still work with them as much as possible to do that. And so we're excited about what we're doing with this program to be able to stay with these kids after they turn 18, to continue to be active in their lives. For those who've never been to campus, our main campus, here's just a few shots of some of the buildings. You'll see on the right of the screen what our family homes look like up there. We are very much a residential community. We try to be that as much as possible. Our Balcom Learning Center is the top picture. Our administration building is there below. We have a lot of people, if it weren't for our signs, who've been in Pickerel for years, drive by. Sometimes they don't even know we're there because we really don't want to be business-like. We want to be family-oriented. We also have, not too far from our campus, the Emmett Smith Memorial Farm. This is where we have all of our equine therapy, 4-H programs. We have our gardens out there. We produce a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables in our gardens. The kids love going to the farm and working with their animals. Our kids are involved in 4-H. They're showing their animals on a local level, on a district level, and state level. They're winning scholarship money. We've had kids who've won scholarship money at the State Fair in Little Rock for showing animals down there. But it's also giving them a sense of accomplishment of doing something out there and working with it. Never underestimate the value of working with animals and what it can teach our kids. It's really a great thing to do. We also have about 15 miles from our campus, the William and Vakel the Olive Ranch, which is about 320 acres. It's actually a working ranch. We have cattle out there. We have hay production. How many of you have ever heard of foot golf? Anybody know what foot golf is? Foot golf is a combination between soccer and putt-putt golf, if you can imagine that. And so we have the first foot golf course in Northeast Arkansas on the ranch over there. We've been using it. It's a connection with the youth camp that we also own and operate up there. Little known fact with the ranch that we have and with our 4-H program, we literally produce all of the beef and pork that we consume at children's homes in our residential program. Our kids are working with these animals. They learn very quickly the circle of life. Every once in a while you'll have that one, sometimes kids can be a little smart aleck. And you'll have that one kid at the dinner table one night that'll just raise up and go, "Who are we eating tonight?" They name these animals, and they know later on they could end up on the table. But that's okay. They learn that not all things comes prepackaged from Walmart in a lot of ways. Another thing that we built a couple of years ago was our clothing and food center. For congregations that are involved in our food run that we do, our truck that goes around every week to pick up groceries and clothing. Our house moms shop here every week, and you'll see it looks like a little grocery store. The shelving actually was donated to us by L.A. Darling and Paragould. They produce store shelving for Walmart, so we have actually Walmart shelving in our food center there. Big walk-in freezers and coolers for all the produce and meat that we produce. This has been a great addition to us. We had one that was in desperate need of repair, and so we decided to build a new one. It took us a while to get it done because I'm kind of a stickler about the fact that we don't use money that people give us on a daily basis to care for kids to build buildings. People give that money to us to feed and to clothe and to educate these kids and to provide those services, not to build a building. And so if we're going to build a building, we're going to have to raise the money above and beyond. We were able to do that with this building. So we built it this way. The back room has a big sorting room back there, so when groceries come in, we're able to rotate the stock. We don't lose the things by going out of date. It's been a great asset for us. The thing that was my pet peeve was this project right here to add to it. We doubled the size of the building to add a clothing center in our campus, which we didn't have. And here's why. I would come into the office in the afternoons, the administration building, and our hallways would be lined with black garbage bags of clothing, because it was a convenient way for people to donate those things to us. But I'll tell you, in all those years, it just bothered me to see these kids tearing open garbage bags looking for clothes. Because I thought if part of our responsibility is to create value and worth in these kids, that just doesn't do it. Plus, you never knew what you were going to get. You've heard that old saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. We have learned at children's homes, just to be direct with you, sometimes one man's trash is another man's trash. And sometimes people give clothes to us. I think their heart is good, but they just don't understand. So let me be direct like I was a while ago about our teachers. Let me be direct about this. If it's not good enough for you to wear, don't send it to us. We are working to create value and worth in these kids, not give them trash to wear. We don't want them to be dressed better than everybody else in school, but we'd like for them to be comparable to people in school so they don't have kids laughing at them, because kids will do that. We've opened up bags of clothing that have had dirty diapers in it. We've opened up bags of clothing that have had vomit all over them. And what a lot of people don't understand is that, I know you're like, I don't want to throw it away, I can't throw it away. Let's give it to them. We have to throw it away, but it costs us money to do it, because we have to take it to the city dump. And I don't think anybody wants to use the money that's donated to us for us to haul stuff to the dump. But now then what happens with our kids is all those black garbage bags come into this facility here. And we have people on staff that sort it and wash it and clean it and size it and hang it up. And now in the afternoons after school, our kids come in and they go to a clothing center. And they get to go to racks like you and I get to go to in stores. And they get to go through the racks and find clothes. And there's dressing rooms they get to go try the clothes on. And there's mirrors to look at themselves. And ladies, I'm just telling you, it is something inborn in you. These girls will come out of the dressing room, they'll look at each other, and the first word out of their mouth is, does this make me look fat? But I love it because it's normal for them to be able to do this now. And it's created a different level of value in them that we're saying to them, you are worth more than trash. But this has grown now to the point that now then, even in our foster care program, in our kids that come into our residential program and leave us, trash bags have a very negative connotation in child welfare. If you've ever done foster care, you know for the most part when those kids come to you with all their stuff, how does it come to you in? A garbage bag. But the one thing that we are able to do now through help of some churches out there is they may come with all their stuff in garbage bags, but when they leave us, they're leaving with their stuff in a brand new suitcase. Whether in foster care, whether in our residential program, because we want them to understand that we work to make things better. One of our policies at children's homes is when we go somewhere to do things, when we leave, I tell everybody, we leave things better than what they were when we got here. It is the same thing for our kids. When they leave us, they leave better than what they were when they came to us. And we try to work that through everything that we do at children's homes. A lot of people have heard of the Crowledge Ridge Youth Camp up in Paragould, outside of Paragould. We've rebranded this. It's now called the Ridge Retreat and Adventure Center. It's a year-round retreat center that we have there up there. We had for a number of years. We have really nice, if we can get that to advance, we have really nice big cabins that they camp in. They're all air-conditioned and heated, indoor bathrooms and things like that. We have a really nice pool up there that we built a few years ago. We have a lot of scenic views. This is where we house all of our experiential learning programs, our ropes courses, high elements, low elements, our zip lines. At one time we had the longest zip line in the state of Arkansas. We had been surpassed, so now we've got to build something much bigger. And so we're working to do that because we like our kids to have a good time. We have really nice scenic views of the ranch that we have, a creek that runs through the property. But we're excited because this year we are breaking ground on this new facility. We've actually done the pad work, it's done for it, all the dirt work. We built the roads up and everything. And so here in a few months we're going to break ground on nearly 10,000 square foot main building out there that we're replacing. It's going to be a neat facility for us. It's going to have a big arbor on the back of it with fire pit built into it. The dining area in the building is going to be larger by itself than the entire old main building was, all encompassing. And so we're excited about this because this gets used a lot. We have groups from Harding that come up and use this on the weekends, groups from Freed Hardeman that come over and use it. A lot of churches use it for youth retreats, men's retreats, ladies' retreats. We're also going to be offering some other things with this. We're going to be doing some weekends where we invite church leaders in to help you start to see the signs of families in crisis, even in your own congregations. So maybe we can help equip you to get on the front end of things instead of having to deal with it after the fact. We're going to do some weekends for husbands and wives. We've already done one of these where we had couples come in and they stayed at camp for the weekend, and these couples went through our ropes course to kind of redevelop their trust for each other. That was kind of the interesting thing to watch that happen with all of these families out there. And so we're using this to kind of give back to some of our churches to offer some facilities for you to be able to have places you can go and do things with your congregation, but also use our skills that we have to help train you to help watch for some things in your congregations and in your communities. Foster care, I have no idea what time it is. So we talked about this earlier, and we are always looking for foster families. We are actively searching for foster families right now in Arkansas to help care for kids in their homes. You have families here who have been involved. I think that we offer a great beneficial thing in foster care to our families, of what we're able to do of working through our caseworkers and not working through maybe state workers who, let me tell you, it's not that they're doing a bad job. They are just so overrun with kids. They just can't get to all of them. And we try our best to give our families good care and good love and good support out there. All of those boarding payments come through us at children's homes. They don't come through the state. So there's no strings attached to those kinds of things. And so we tell you that to say if you have any interest in doing that, we would love to talk to you. You've got Melinda and Sarah here who are working with this, and so we hope that you'll talk to us. To give you a little statistics, and these are kind of really low out there, you can always say, the top line up there is the number of beds in by private agencies in the state of Arkansas. You see where we are. The next line down is us. At children's homes, the line below that is Searcy Children's Homes, to show that we are making a difference in this state of providing beds for kids in care. You also see the number of homes that we have. Our number is down a little bit in homes for this very reason right here. Since the beginning of 2017, we've had 24 children who have come to us as foster children who have found a forever family through adoption. Just this past week, you see the couple on the far right of your screen. They worship at at downtown here in Searcy. They adopted Riley. And you see the couple there with Mason, their other child. This week here on Wednesday, I'll be in Fort Smith. We have 4 more adoptions going on in Fort Smith on Wednesday and Thursday of this week, which will put us to 28 kids. That means we also have 8 more who will find their forever families through us by the end of 2018. If everything goes as planned. I love that. I love that we have kids who come to us who are getting out of that revolving door of child welfare and finding that forever family to be there with them for the rest of their lives. And it takes a lot of work and care to do it. Real quickly, I want to tell you about a family right here, the Barkers. The Barkers live in Fort Smith. You see the 5 children standing between them. They're on the ends. The 5 children standing in the back. Those are their 5 biological children. The two kids in front of them, Matthew and Isabella, they brought into foster care after their kids were kind of grown, going off to college. They loved them so much they just couldn't let them go. And so they adopted Matthew and Isabella. They became a family with 7 children instead of just 5. And they thought they were done. But you know, God uses people. And we had a pretty horrific incident that happened in our state a couple of years ago now, of a young child who was burned severely. And the Barkers took these 2 kids in to be their foster parents. And on this Wednesday, those 2 little boys will become Barkers. And they will go from 5 children to 7 children to 9 children. What makes this story a little bit different than a lot of our foster families out there is what the Barkers are looking at to the future. This young child was so burned so severely, he's going to need a lot of surgeries. We've been involved with Shriners Burn Center down in Galveston, Texas. They have been told that Baby D, as we refer to him right now, will have to have anywhere from 2 to 4 surgeries a year for the next 18 to 20 years of his life because of the severity of burns on his body. I don't know many families who would know that and would walk in to take this child and adopt this child for the rest of their lives and care for him. But that just shows you what these people are and who they are by what they're willing to do. We are partnering with them because as of May 23rd, the state's not covering anything. Their private insurance is going to pay for all these surgeries and all that kind of stuff, but private insurance is not going to pay for trips back and forth to Galveston and meal expense and hotel expense and all those kinds of things. They've made 2 trips to Galveston already, and their cost was a little over $4,000 just for those 2 trips. What we've done at Children's Homes is we've set up a special fund for Baby D. And anybody, and I'll tell you this morning, if you want to help with this, you want to write a check, just write Baby D on the memo line. You want to give cash, whatever it is, every bit of it goes into that fund. And so now then, for all these years to come, we've got this fund that we're working on that when they leave and go to Galveston and come home, they have enough to worry about of caring for him and helping him heal. We don't want them to worry about the financial side of it. And so all they do is they send us the receipts of all their expenses, and we turn around and write them a check and reimburse them for it. The way I look at it is if they're willing to take on this child and what he's going to go through for the rest of his life, then I think God expects us to stand there with them and get it done. If they're willing to do that huge a thing, then I think we could pull some money out of our pockets to help this family accomplish what needs to be done so this child can have life. Can have life. So this morning, let me tell you, there's a lot of ways to help us, and you know a lot of these ways. Obviously, prayer is a huge thing for us, of knowing that we are in your prayers. In our newsletter, if you get it, you see on the back of the newsletter a lot of most needed items, whether groceries, whether t-shirts and things like that. Those things, we're always looking for those things. There's other things too. We have a lot of kids in foster care who are under the age of 3 that still need diapers and wipes and pull-ups. That's something you can do right here locally to help the office here, and they're just right down the road from you. Change for Children, memorial giving, estate planning, but especially Baby D. And whatever you might be able to do to help us in that, we would certainly be appreciative for it. This morning, I thank you so much for what you do for us. We literally, because of who we are and our foundation and our commitment to not compromising God, we cannot do what we do without you. It would be impossible. So please know how much you are honored, how much you are thanked, how much we thank God for you, for how you partner with us to care for God's children. They are, after all, a heritage from the Lord. And we are called to care for them as God would do. I thank you so much this morning for your time. Don't forget about the stuff up here on the front pew, and we're dismissed.